I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of buddies I talked to. I would give my life in a second for my partners, but I wouldn't tell them what was going on inside me.
Right.
So one clear thing is that brother, is that guy that you can trust with, like you say, the deepest, darkest secrets inside your heart. Do you have that person? And then along with that, will that person tell you to do the right thing?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mighty Oak Show. Glad to have you with us today and looking forward to a great conversation. Obviously, there are so many things going on in the world right now at this moment, and we're recording this earlier in the week, but when it is released on Friday and Saturday of this week, so many things are happening and it's hard to keep track of, but we're gonna have a very important conversation today about some things that are happening locally and some things that are happening even within the Mighty Oaks Foundation. So looking forward to that. Before we jump into that though, I want to remind you, please take some time, if you're listening to the podcast version of this or you're listening on the radio, take some time when we're done to go over to YouTube, and you can find us there. Go to YouTube, search for Mighty Oaks Foundation or Mighty Oaks Warrior Programs. Probably if you put in Mighty Oaks, you'll find us, and you can go to our channel, hit subscribe, hit then the notification bell. That lets you know when all of this content comes online, and we do this show, of course, but we do a lot of other things that go on YouTube, and we love to share that with you, so make sure that you are notified when that happens. You can also share this content out, and the reason we do this show in this format is so that you have a resource for yourself, but you also have a resource to share out with others, and I trust you'll take advantage of that. And again, thank you for joining us. Please let us know if we can do anything to help you. My guest today is someone that's been on our show many times before. John Davis is here via Zoom because the whole world is on Zoom right now, so that's just how we operate. But John Davis is with us. John works for the Mighty Oaks Foundation. He works with our applicants. In many cases, he's the first person that someone who applies to our program will interact with. And he's very involved in our first responders program. And we're going to talk about the first responders program today. And just wanted to give you an overview for those that are not familiar with the work that we do with first responders, police officers, firefighters, those in that community, how we serve them, why we serve them the way that we do, and many of the unique challenges that they're facing today. John, thank you once again for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, great to be here.
There are a million things going on in the world, and man, one of the big things for you guys right now, your son is being deployed to help deal with a lot of what's happening in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he is. He's probably on his en route there right now, but of course it brings back memory of going over the Middle East myself a number of years ago. The first Gulf War. My wife, she's been through it with her ex-husband as well as her brother, so it's different for her though. I mean, she definitely said it's a lot different being her son than a spouse or a sibling for sure. So she's actually handling it pretty well, obviously nervous, and we've been praying a lot, and his brothers are a little bit more fired up than we are. Yeah, not too happy about that. I'm just nervous for him, obviously. But yeah, it's a interesting time. Don't know what's going to go on over there, and like nobody does. But just have to have faith, and he's ready. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I think we have this conversation a lot, and folks in our organization do. We've all served. Most of us have been in combat situations. But when you talk about your kids going, it's a whole different game, man. And it's funny, I was never afraid to go, but you can be afraid for your kids, and it changes. He's actually, you know this, but he's in the 82nd, and actually my same exact unit. We did have different jobs as a combat medic. I was a forward observer, but so there's definitely a lot of memories coming back. And he lives in the same barracks that I was in, same places. So
that's crazy.
A lot of those things are coming up, in my head, not in a bad way, but definitely reliving some of that. Yeah,
we'll be in prayer for Garrett for sure, and trust that God will take care of him. And it's funny for us, I think a lot of the reason we do the work that we do and that we're passionate about it is because it's very personal to us. We're going to talk about our first responders program today, and this is one of the areas for my son who's looking at a career in law enforcement, and you've spent a lot of time with him and mentored him in a lot of ways in that area. But it's very real to us because we understand personally the impact, not only having served, but seeing those who we've encouraged our kids to be good citizens and to serve others, and now they're doing it, and you want to go like, is this really what we want for them?
No.
But we've got to take care of them. And so, one of the ways that we attempt to do that here at the Mighty Oaks Foundation is by serving the first responder community, which is kind of new to us. I continue to say that. We've been working with first responders for a very long time, but in a very focused, very concerted effort, the last couple of years, we've added so many in the law enforcement and fire service, EMTs, of course, paramedics, others in the first responder community to our program. As we begin, we'll talk about some specifics, but can you just give us an overview of what that looks like, how they're included, kind of how that's grown over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came in, we hadn't done first responder only. I went through the program because I was a combat veteran, went through the program, and I'll tell you, like, from the get-go, before I even had any idea that there was going to be first responders as far as we're going to serve them, I thought in my head, and why I got involved with Mighty Oaks in the first place is, man, I needed this. I needed this when I was a young police officer. My time in the military and the combat deployments I had, those didn't, at least I didn't think at the time, really bothered me much. It wasn't the intensity of the guys that are post 9/11, like in Afghanistan and some of the crazy battles in Iraq. Just enough to give me a taste, but most of my, I guess you could say, trauma and issues that I dealt with was through law enforcement. And I just thought in my head, is like, man, if I could have had some type of structure that Mighty Oaks could have provided. I mean, I was a believer when I was a police officer, and as I shared before, I was walking with the Lord when I first started as a police officer, and I drifted away into a very, very dark place. And I had such a passion when I heard the messages from the veterans, from everybody there, that, man, I just wanted to. I had no idea that I could be involved in Mighty Oaks when I went through, and just in my head and my heart, I was like, man, police officers need this. Young police officers need, all police officers need this, but man, I needed it. And fortunately, and I was able to be part of Mighty Oaks and serve, and it's grown tremendously, for sure. So it's been awesome to see where we were to where we are now as far as serving those guys.
Yeah, early on we said if you're in the first responder community, which is a pretty, it's a pretty big umbrella, but if you're in the first responder community, you can attend one of our regular programs and we'll fit you in. And that worked really well until we realized there were so many folks that needed to be a part of it. But police officers and firefighters, definitely police officers, but also firefighters are very cynical, just like those in the military are. And so it took us just a minute to get things moving, but once it did, just like on the veteran side, having veterans who have been in combat, speaking to other combat veterans, there's a kinship, a brotherhood, and that relationship brings people along. The exact same thing has happened on the first responder side, and it's crazy to see that happen.
Yeah, it's blowing up. I mean, when we first started this, it was tough. Our first responder program, and I was working to get 11 guys.
Right.
11 guys were in that. And I was like, whew, I thought it would be easy. And now we're maxing out our first responder program. So I think we're going to 4 next year. And every single program has first responders in anywhere from 3 or 4 to 10 guys that are just first responders. So, I mean, it excites me for sure. And I think we're just scratching the surface of the need for those guys.
Right.
But we're going in the right direction for sure.
A lot of people don't understand when they look at a veterans organization why we would feel it's necessary to work with police officers, for firefighters, and those in that first responder community. Can you talk to some of the unique challenges in a perfect world? So not the 2020, 2021 world, but in a perfect world, some of the unique challenges that those in law enforcement and those in the fire service are dealing with that would lead them to the need, as you mentioned, for a program like ours.
The difference is, and one basic difference between a guy who goes over to combat to people in first responders, whether it's fire or police, is every day can be different. I mean, I guess that'd be similar to a deployment. I mean, you're not going to get in firefights every day, but you're deployed pretty much your whole career because you never know. You never know, and you go to work and nothing happens, and then you go to work and you see death and debauchery, and whether it's being involved in shootings or the number of things you see are limitless, from victims of domestic abuse, kids being abused, people losing their lives in car accidents. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, you see the worst of society. And the challenges for those guys and what basically happened to me and a lot of law enforcement, it doesn't happen overnight. If you're a guy in the military and you went to some place like Ramadi or some of those crazy battles, and you go over one person and you come back and you're somebody else, and people around know it, because there's this huge change because you saw such craziness. And law enforcement's not always like that. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes you see some stuff that's pretty horrific for sure, but it's more of a, like we call it the slow drip, right? You slowly, something happens, you see an accident, you see a death, you go back, you drink some coffee with your buddies, you go to domestic violence, you see a wife being abused, you go back, you hang out with your boys, then you go home from work and you're with your family and you're trying to be this loving dad, and then you go to work, and it's a challenge, a mental challenge, to a point where, there was at times I'd be not at work, and just almost like, man, feeling like these people have no idea what's going on inside me right now. And it's almost like you're two people, right? It's almost like you, and I remember specifically, and this is the best example I could give, is I was working weekend graveyards like I did most of my career. And I worked a Friday night, Saturday morning, I'm coaching my boys in a Pop Warner football game. And I'm standing there on the sideline and everyone's all happy because we're winning, because my team's won. Just saying. But as I was standing there, I just had this thought, like, man, this is so different than what I was doing last night. And I don't remember what it was, but it was a crazy Friday night, fights probably, people in jail. And I was like thinking in my head, if these people knew like what I did last night, would they want me around their kids? And nothing I did was wrong per se, but man, it was violent. And it's hard to work through that and be that loving dad and feel like it's real. It was real what I was doing. I loved coaching. I loved being around the kids. I loved, being a husband, but at that same time, then you'd go to work and you would see the things you would, and, like men, like all men, we just shove it down. That's what we do. And there's a separation of what you want to be to somebody you have to be to survive as a police officer. You can't just go in there and be all emotional. So you've got to learn how to push that stuff down so you can do your job. And it's definitely a dilemma and some conflict. And, that one day you wake up, like for me, I mean, about 5 years in my career, I woke up, I had no idea how I became the person I did. And it was slowly over time. But at the beginning of my career, man, my thoughts, my heart was one thing. And I would have never thought I could have became the person I did 5-6 years later in my career. I was like, nope, that's not me. I wouldn't do that. And sure enough, I did. And I fell in some things that, obviously I'm not proud of. And mostly just my heart was very, very dark at one point. You get the bitterness and anger, and you shove it down, and I'd go to church and smile and be happy. And I mean, I'd put on that face of being happy and then go to work and become that cop again. So it's a tough mentally for sure. It's tough emotionally for sure to balance that. Yeah. And unless you're really, really grounded, and it's hard to stay on the path, stay on that course of the person you really want to be, regardless if you know who that is, let alone if you don't. Yeah.
We talk in our programs often about wearing a mask and how, we all wear a mask and we need to lower that mask and get behind that. I do think for a combat veteran, that analogy rings true. You wear a mask, and we always talk about when you are out of the military, you need to stop acting like you're in the military. You need to understand you're not there anymore. And although it's great to be proud of your service and those things, don't identify with that. Don't make that who you are, because that becomes a mask and it prevents you from getting healing. One of the things that is really challenging for those in the first responder community is they wear a mask as well, but it's a defense really against what they're dealing with tonight when they go to work, and what they're dealing with, like you said, they coach the football game. Well, they need to wear a different mask than when they're at work, and working through that is very, very difficult. How do you navigate that? How do you become authentic and true when you're kind of one foot in both of those worlds?
Well, I didn't do a very good job, so I can't tell you how I did it.
We learn all kinds of ways, John. Sometimes it's the way we mess it up.
I can tell you what not to do. Yeah. And this goes back to what I said earlier, as far as I wish I had Mighty Oaks, because I had, we talked about our 4 pillars of staying in the Word, staying in prayer, staying accountable, and staying in fellowship. And simply, if I would have done that, I would have stayed on the course. And the biggest thing, I went to church, I prayed. Obviously it wasn't that deep prayer when my life was going the wrong direction, but I never had the accountability. And that was probably one big mistake that a lot of officers make. Yeah, I had a lot of friends, I had a buddy I talked to. I would give my life in a second for my partners, but I wouldn't tell them what was going on inside me. Right. So one clear thing is that brother, is that guy that you can trust with, like you say, the deepest, darkest secrets inside your heart? Do you have that person? And then along with that, will that person tell you to do the right thing? Will they hold you accountable? Will they tell you, hey, idiot, you're married, you need to do this, or you don't need to go to the bar and drink, whatever it is, you need that, and it's establishing like who you want to be as a man. And I knew who I wanted to be as a man. That's clear. From the time I was 17, I wanted to be a Christian man. I wanted a family, and I had that, and then I lost it. But I never had anybody, and that was my fault for not. I had people around me for sure. I had people in my church. There's some police officers that was Christian. There's people I could have reached out to and would have held me accountable. But I chose for whatever reason not to, because we look at it as a weakness.
Right.
If I would have told guys what was happening inside me as a police officer, I at the time I would have thought, man, I'm not going to show any weakness. Especially after the reputation I kind of established as a police officer. I was a pretty aggressive police officer. I couldn't do that. And a lot of us, just men in general, it doesn't matter what you do, we have that pride, like we can't show weakness.
Right. In
reality, that is a weakness. That was a huge weakness I had that led me down the path it did. So back to your question is, man, how can you navigate that? Man, you got to know who you want to be as a man, for sure. And it's got to be solid. And then you got to have a solid plan and how you're going to walk your life. You're going to have the challenges. Police officers, we know what the challenges are going to be, for sure. You're going to have temptations out there. Women throwing themselves at you, the ability to do the right or wrong thing that nobody's going to find out.
Right.
There's temptations and challenges every day for your moral, your integrity. Everything that you want, everything I wanted to be as a man. And I was solid, and then I lost my way, for sure.
There are now some unique challenges to being a police officer. Probably not unique historically. I think we've had moments like this before, but we're at a very difficult time. I say being a police officer, for sure. I think throughout the first responder community, it's challenging. But talk about how difficult it is, and I know it is because I've talked to many in this community, how difficult it is to then get help when it's hard to get help anyhow, when you feel like your community is against you. Probably the biggest example right now, a police officer was killed in Chicago last week, and the mayor of Chicago, who just allowed a concert with like 35,000 people in her city, said that they can't do an honor guard because of COVID. She shut it down, and she shut it down because she does not respect or want to be associated with law enforcement in her community. But that's happening across the country. And it alienates the first responder community from the communities that they intend to serve. It's crazy for me. You know this community where we are in Murrieta, incredibly supportive community for first responders, police, fire, very integrated community in terms of their support, for those who serve us. But there are a lot of places, many places, maybe most places that's not the case. Can you talk about the challenge that brings to those in that community getting the help they need?
Well, like you said, when I was a police officer, which was 93 to 2004, so I've been retired a bit. Besides the people we were dealing with, people were taken to jail,
right.
We had a lot of support.
Right.
Not only in the communities. And this is a big mistake that they think in those communities that, down there in the hood and, the lower income, that they don't support us. Absolutely, they support us. They love us. They need us being there. They want us there, 100% in every community. The lie in the media of they hate us is not the case at all, for sure. But back then, like I said, I had a lot of support. Being a police officer was something you could be proud of. When people ask you what you did, was it prideful? I don't know, but I was proud of what I did, for sure, 100%. Yeah. I was proud that I was a police officer. And it's so I can't imagine it now, and I can't fully comprehend because I'm not actually in it now, but I feel it. And for me personally, I've had to stay off media, watching what's being said a lot, just because it gets me so angry, and I know that's not good for me. So I really take my time and don't spend a lot of time watching what's being said. I want to keep up to date because it will really bother me.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what those guys are going through, just the perception and this false narrative of who police officers are. And I got a great story of this, not a great story, a sad story that we have, like personal friends. We had this couple we've been friends with from church. And Quinny, my wife, was at their house one time, and the wife asked she asked Quinny, like, why do police officers kill Black people? And I was like, how could you even think something like that? It's so far from the truth of what police officers are about, you know? And I don't sit there and say, yeah, is there bad police officers? I'm sure there is. You know, I could tell you this, you know, my 10 years career, I didn't have one guy ever do anything because of race or prejudices or bias.
Right.
I mean, you know, they took care of business because those guys need business taken care of, you know? But that perception of who police officers are,
right,
that they're out there hunting Black people is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And sadly, man, like, my heart really breaks for the police officers now to have to work that profession, knowing that every day they go there, knowing they might not go home.
Yeah.
You know, and those same people that hate them are the ones that are calling them when they need help. And it's just like, I can't even comprehend it. You know, I was listening to this thing on YouTube. This was pretty funny. I'm gonna kind of switch gears here. I was watching this police officer. He was videotaping himself, and I don't do it justice, but he's videotaping himself. He's cracking up, and he's like, I'm on my way, and he can't even say it with a straight face, I'm on my way to defund the police because the people marching want the police to come and protect them. And keep the and these are the people who are marching for defund the police.
Right.
I mean, that's just the craziness of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
That, you know, things like that are happening. Good people are so misguided of this narrative that the media and the politics and
right.
basically at war with police officers.
Yeah.
And it's sad, you know. So it's a crazy time.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. You know, one of the other groups that we work with, police, is fire, and I don't know what firefighters are like in other states. You know, I know police and fire get into it and they make fun of each other, but I do know in the state of California where we are, firefighters are very, very busy. A lot of that is because of the wildland fire issues that we have, and even city police or city fire departments spend, you know, half their year fighting wildfires. The stations, even here locally to us, one of the busiest stations in the United States is about 20 minutes from here. Very, very busy, and because of that, there's unique challenges there as well. And some of those come in the form of working all the time, not having the opportunity to process so much of what they deal with. And you hear stories about responding to accidents where children are killed, and then going back to the station, changing clothes, and going to some kind of a community event. You never have the right or the opportunity to be sad, to process, to deal with things. And you know, here in our state, CAL FIRE is now one of the organizations, that's our state fire department, that is sending more and more folks to our programs. I know you've talked to a lot of those folks as well, but it's a crazy time for everyone right now in the first responder community. Yeah,
firemen, like we said, we do have that. It's kind of like the Army, Navy, not Army, Navy, Army, Marines, right? Yeah, you always tell me how much better you're, and everybody wants to be a Marine.
Which is true, but that's true, though. That's the difference.
It is true. But at the end of the day, man, you know, if we were in combat, it would make a difference.
That's right.
Brothers, right? And that's the truth. With firemen, we were always jealous as police officers. You know, what's a frustrated fireman? A police officer, right? Kind of funny. But it was that friendly rivalry or whatever. And I remember before our first responder, and I think I've told you this before the first responder only program we were going to do, literally a couple weeks before it, there was a fire captain from Westminster that jumped off the bridge and killed himself. And my first reaction is like, why does a fireman want to kill himself? Everybody loves them. They make good money. They have great schedules. But I started thinking about it, and I'm like, then I started looking it up, and I at the time anyways, there was more firemen killing themselves with police officers. Right. And I was really shocked by that initially. And then as I thought about it, well, what are the things that bothered me as a police officer? You know, it wasn't the shootings I was involved with. It wasn't that. It wasn't the fights. I mean, the fights were fun most of the time. I don't want to say the shootings were fun, but those things really didn't bother me, you know. The things that bother me and the things that are still ingrained in my brain, the things that I never forget, you know, is the dead kids, is the women that are beat, is the women that are raped, it is the victims out there. the traffic collisions. And I always say this, and when you smell burning flesh, as you over in Iraq yourself, you remember that smell, and something that can never get out of your nostrils. I say it, I can smell it, right? I say dead kids, I can remember the first dead kid I ever saw. And as I was thinking through this, I was like, man, who's there with us? It's the firemen.
Yeah.
And I have a good buddy who's Cal Fire, and we were talking about this, and he's like telling me, like, John, like, sometimes you guys do it, but we're the ones holding these kids, these people, a lot of times they take their last breath.
Yeah.
So it really did change my heart as far as firemen go and what they have to go through. Knowing just me personally, those are the things that still to this day, for sure, as you could tell, they're a little emotional because they never leave. I talk about it, I could see it like it is happening right now, and those guys see it every day. Yeah. Every single day, well, maybe not every single day, but a lot. Yeah. A lot, so they have some challenges for sure,
I was talking to a friend of mine who's a LA City Fire, and we were talking a couple weeks ago, and he said, what we do is just not normal. And I was struck by this. He's been working for 20 years as a firefighter. And he said, I responded to a fire the other day, and there was a body that had been burned. And the thought came to me, this is not normal. It's not normal to deal with things like this. And he looked at me and said, we've got to work through how to process this and how to help other people deal with this as well. And that's, again, comes back to your point, is it's not normal. It becomes normal in your world maybe, but when you stop long enough to think about it, you realize this is not what normal people do.
And if it doesn't bother you and doesn't affect you, then there's something wrong with you.
There's something wrong, right? Yeah. So let's talk about how we help those in the first responder community. What we do is maybe different. I am not sure that apart from medication and psychiatry or psychology, that there is a lot available to those in the first responder community, which makes the veteran community unique as well. There are so many different programs and opportunities, and I believe what we do is the very best thing, but there are a lot of places that a veteran can go and try to get help. But those who are in the first responder community, there's really not much. I mean, there are counselors, peer support teams, departments are trying to do a better job of dealing with these things. But we've had the opportunity now to bring a couple hundred folks into our program. We'll continue to advance that. But our approach is unique, and what's been fascinating to me is that when you're talking about a veteran, you're talking about someone who's been in the military and is not anymore. So when we talk about faith and things like that, there's no restraint on that. We work with those who are currently in the military, but they know what we're about. But we have fire departments, police departments, others who are sending folks to us, understanding we approach this from a faith position, and they don't care because it works. Can you talk about our approach, particularly with first responders, and how we help them work through what they're dealing with?
Well, you're right, and I've heard this a lot, that what we do is obviously different in every capacity, but for first responders, I don't know how many guys have told me there's nothing out there. I've had guys recently say, I've looked, and there's nothing out there for first responders. And yeah, of course, you mentioned the peer support groups, and they're doing a much better job of that, and a much better job of when there's a critical incident, getting guys around counselors and people they could talk to. But as far as what we do, there's nothing that I know of and nothing that I've heard of that does it, and it's, what do we do for them is the same thing we do for veterans, and the same thing that would help any man, right? What the thing we always say, helping him be the man God created him to be. Well, what does that look like, man? Well, let's break this down. We just simply break it down into who you want to be as a man. Do we want character? Do we want to leave a legacy? Do we need discipline in our life? Yeah, these are things that we all say and we know. Well, how do we do it? I was a very disciplined individual, but I didn't discipline my life to keep on the path that I wanted to as a young police officer. And that was the thing about Mighty Oaks when I first went through it. It's like, man, here's a structure. Here's how I can walk every single day and stay on that path, and we do it through a biblical perspective for sure. And us believe that's the key element. But along with that is, well, what does that look like? I had the faith as a young man, but I didn't have the structure, and learning that structure and how to walk, how to deal with these things, how to deal with temptation, how to discipline your life, how to take care of that free time when we teach a margin class. Really, what does legacy mean? All those classes put together, it's like, man, yeah, that's if I follow these things, if I utilize these tools, as we call it, man, I am going to be that man. And even my 5 years, as you know, I've been through some things, some hard things, and utilizing that to get through those. I haven't got through them, but I became a better man because of it. I use them every day. What I do, I talk to all the kids that I coach, 100 kids at J. Sarah I get to coach. I share the same messages that I'm sharing to men in hopes they don't, fall in some of the, make the mistakes that we made as younger men. So, what do we do for those first responders, man? It's like, first, I think it starts with knowing who you want to be, and I think all of us say we want to be good men, but what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, we got to break that down, having integrity, what does a legacy mean? Like just getting in the depths of what that is and then showing them, hey, this is how I walked. This is how I walked in my life. This is how I failed. Well, this is how I got back up. And how today, I live with joy and I live with peace and I live with hope, and just our program as a whole. And what's it done for me? What's it done for, man, hundreds, thousands. I don't even know how many of men that I'm still in contact with and how it can change their life. It's hard to put into words like what our program does to help these guys, right? Other than say, man, if I would have had this program as a young police officer and known how to deal with the things that I dealt with and walk it the way that I really wanted to, man, things would have been so much different, but things happen as they should. And now I get the opportunity to share that and share it with these other guys and police officers. I'm so excited about the first responder program too, and these guys coming in, because we are just scratching the surface with it. 100%. The guys that are coming in, they're coming in fast and furious and need it like right now. And man, I'm just so happy, so blessed to be in this position to be able to share and help these guys, for sure.
For those that aren't familiar with kind of the way we set up our sessions, they're week-long sessions, and we segregate men and women. So we have men's programs and women's programs, or men's sessions and women's sessions. We've just found that men are a lot more honest when there aren't women around, and women are a lot more honest when men aren't around too. So a lot of men come through our first responders program. Women or female first responders are definitely welcome and included in all of our women's sessions as well. And we're blessed to have those in the first responder community support our women's program as well. So that's available for both. And again, that continues to expand. Why is faith such an important aspect of all of this for police officers, firefighters, those who are out there every day making this happen? Why is faith so important?
Well, faith is so important because the things you see every day, man, if you don't have faith, you're not going to have any hope, because you're just seeing so much bad. You're seeing, we talk about the darkness of this world you see every day. I don't know how you could walk it, as a police officer or a fireman without any faith, just out there. I mean, how could you not totally just not have any hope whatsoever if you didn't have faith? Right. It's amazing to me that the people that do this profession and don't have faith. And of course, it's a personal choice for sure. But I say that in terms of like, man, how do you get through your day with no faith or no hope and knowing there's something bigger and there's a reason and there's a sovereign God out there? Like, it flabbergasted me. I don't know how they do it. I had the faith and I never lost my faith. And I want to be clear on that. I didn't lose my faith. Correct. Faith in myself, maybe faith in myself as a Christian, if I was even a Christian, on how I walked. But I still believed, and I still had that belief that this had happened for a reason. It's a fallen world, all those things. So, yeah, I guess, man, doing this job without faith, man, I have to pray for you guys, because it's going to be really tough, how you stay positive, how you stay with any hope without any faith, man. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's not faith in yourself, it's faith in God, who is bigger, who is sovereign, who's in control. I wonder how people are able to even contextualize what's happening if they don't believe there is a God who's bigger than all of this. I mean, how do you put any of that in context?
Man, I don't. Even having faith, the faith is shaken, for sure. Man, God, I mean, how can there be a loving God and these things happen, right? Yeah. And that's where truth versus feelings definitely come into play, man. Because you got to go back to the word. And what does God say about that? And if you don't have that, man, how can you not lose hope?
Right.
Seeing those things every day.
We have a first responder program actually coming up here in a couple of weeks, and looking forward to that. For those that are interested in this program, fill out an application on our website, and that will go to John.
That will go to me.
And John will make sure you get in the right place, and he'll help you there. One of the great things about what we're able to do here at Mighty Oaks is we make the program available to you, and then we cover the costs, and we do all the logistics, all the planning. All you have to do is hit send on the application once you fill it out, and we'll take care of the rest. And that's anywhere in the country. We have folks from all over the country that come to these programs, and we're honored, of course, to be able to support them. So it's awesome. John, I really appreciate it. Man, there's a lot of other things we could talk about, but so important that we're able to serve these folks.
Absolutely. One other thing I want to mention, and I get this question a lot from first responders, is we've had 2, now we're hoping to have 4 next year first responder programs, but a lot of guys can't make it. And they ask me, well, they're a little hesitant to go to the veteran programs. Sure. And I'll tell you right now, like 100%, it's a great mesh. It's the same curriculum. It's the same program. It's just, you're going to have veterans, and they always work really great together. Yeah. And as soon as those guys get there, because they always tell me, man, I'm a little nervous because I haven't been to combat. I'm just a police officer. Like, you've been in combat every day.
Right.
So you've been a police officer. So, but they don't, and a lot of it's out of respect for the veterans and what they've done.
Sure.
Why they're hesitant. So I just want to encourage all those guys out there that aren't veterans, that are just first responders. If you just go to a regular veterans program, and it's going to be great. You'll get the same out of it. So it's a very, very good mesh. Whether you're a police officer, fireman, it works, man. If you're a man, it's a good program.
And it should be said that, in all of our programs, well, 2 things. One, a lot of veterans are police officers. A lot of police officers are, have served, and so there's a lot of crossover. In every one of our sessions, we have instructors who are both. But in terms of going to a place where you don't know anyone and you're not comfortable and how is this going to work, just know that the people who are going to teach you and work with you during that week come from the community that you're coming from. If you're in the first responders program, you have police officers or firefighters who have done this and they're figuring it out. It's the same on the veteran side as well. That's super important. I think that's one of the ways that we're able to get past that mask or that wall, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. We speak the same language, and it's really helpful. We might make fun of you if you're not from the same military branch, but it's going to be okay. We're all on the same team, and that's good. So awesome. I would encourage anyone who's listening that is in the first responder community, please, at the very least, go to our website, mightyoaksprograms.org. Look at the content there. We've got tons of content, resources. As I mentioned earlier, go to our YouTube channel. We've done other interviews with police officers and firefighters that we know and trust and are so insightful in so much of this. Please check that out. But the best thing you could do is fill out an application. You don't need to know when. We'll work that out. We have a team that will help you find the right time and get in the right place and make all those arrangements. If you have the desire to attend, but you think that your department may not want you to attend, let us know that. We have done a good job. John will make a phone call, and we know a lot of folks of influence who can just call and talk through that with whoever the supervisors are. And I don't think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever had a supervisor say no. I think we've always been able to work that out, and they're looking for the help that their folks need.
More and more the law enforcement community and the fire community that they're sending them sometime on city time.
Right.
They're very, very supportive.
Yeah, so we can help you work through that too. We say that to the veterans as well, and we've been pretty successful. Once we talk about what it is, once your boss realizes it's not a vacation, that you're going somewhere to get help and get tools to keep you in the game, then we can help you with that. But please let us know if we can do that for you. We'd love it. And if you know someone in this community, send this out and let them know as well. John, thank you. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll do it again, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
For the rest of you, that's right. For the rest of you that are watching or listening, thank you for doing that. Really appreciate your time as well. Let us know if we can do anything to help you, and we will talk to you next time.